Alright mates, how's it going? In today's video, it's the last chapter of The Last Guardian by Jeff Grubb. Here we are, another one in the bag, or whatever the expression is. Let's go!
Ta-da!
It was inspired, I must say, to summon the shadow of my past, a piece that would stop me from pursuing you. Of course, whilst you were out gathering your strength, I was out gathering my own. Khadgar looked at Garona and gave her a slight nod, so she moved a few steps to the right. Master, what happened to you? Happened to me? We're past that, aren't we? Nothing happened to me. This is who I am. I was tainted from birth, polluted from before my conception. We've never seen the true Medivh. No, whatever's happened, I'm sure it can be fixed. Khadgar and Garona continued to take very, very slow and subtle steps forward, Garona orbiting to the right, whilst Khadgar orbited to the left. Why should I fix it? All goes to plan, the orcs will slay the humans and I will control them, through warlock chiefs like Gul'dan. I will lead these misshapen creations to the lost tomb where Sargeras' body is, protected against demon and human but not against orcs, and my form will be free. Then I can shed this lumpish body and weakened spirit and burn this world as it so richly deserves. So you are Sargeras?
Yes and no. When Aegwynn killed my body, I hid within her womb. I invested her very cells with my dark essence. And when she finally chose her mate, I was there. Medivh's dark twin, completely subsumed within his form.
That's monstrous.
Little different than what Aegwynn had planned. She placed the power of the Tiras Fallen within the child as well. Small wonder that there was so little room for the young Medivh himself, with the demon and the light both fighting for his very soul.
Khadgar continued to move left, trying desperately to keep his eyes off Garona, who was creeping up behind the older mage. Is there anything of the real Medivh within you?
Some. Enough to deal with you lesser creatures. Enough to fool the kings and wizards as to my intent. Medivh is a mask. I've left enough of him at the surface to display to others.
A predatory grin then formed on Medivh's face. Obviously time for one of them villainous monologues that no one asked for.
I was crafted first by Magna Aegwynn's politics to be her tool, and then shaped by demonic hands to be their tool. Even the Order saw me as little more than a weapon to be used against demons. It's hardly surprising that I'm nothing more than the sum of my parts.
Garona was now behind the mage, blade drawn. There were no tears in her eyes though, only a steely determination. But as she took that final step, Medivh turned round and punched her right in the face. Khadgar immediately raised his hands to cast a spell. Something simple, something quick, but Medivh was quicker. The old mage turned back and did a full-blown Darth Vader force choke thing on the apprentice. He then raised his other hand, and pain shot through Khadgar. Felt like his joints were on fire, his skin drying out. However, Garona then charged the magus, causing Medivh to turn and focus his attention on the other immediate threat. So as Khadgar toppled to the floor with the wind knocked out of him, Medivh flicked Garona in the head, causing her to completely freeze mid-charge.
Poor Garona. I thought with your conflicting heritages you of all people would understand what I'm going through. That you would understand the importance of making your own way. But you're just like the others, aren't you?
Garona could only manage a gurgle in response.
Let me show you my world, Garona. Let me drive my own divisions and doubts into you. You'll never know who you serve and why. You'll never find your peace.
Garona tried to scream, but it died in her throat, and the half-orc collapsed to the floor, sobbing, her mind completely scrambled. And Medivh simply laughed. Khadgar wasn't faring much better either, really. He'd just about caught his breath at this point, but his joints still burned, his muscles stiff, and he'd caught his own reflection in the obsidian floor, and his heart sank. He was an old man. The old man from the vision. He'd been robbed of his youth, and he no longer felt quite so confident that he was going to make it out of here alive.
One of the negative things about this human form I'm trapped in is that the human bits keep reaching out, making friends, helping people. It makes it so difficult to destroy them later on. I almost wept when I killed Morose and Cook. Can you believe that? That's why I had to come down here. But it's like anything, really. Once you get used to it, you can kill friends as easily as anyone else. And now you get to die, young trust. Seems your trust was misplaced after all.
Medivh! Lothar, champion of Stormwind, appeared, heroically. Classic Lothar. And Medivh's face seemed to soften for a moment, although the mystic power he'd been summoning in his hand still burned. Anduin Lothar, old friend. Why are you here?
Stop it now, Med. Stop it before it's too late. I don't want to fight you.
I don't want to fight you either, old friend. You have no idea what it's like to do the things I've done. Harsh things, but necessary. I don't want to fight you, so lay down your weapon and let this be done. Medivh then opened his palm and bits of magic then droned towards the champion. You want to help me, don't you, old friend? You want to be my servant. Come, help me dispose of this child, and we can be friends again. There were stars dancing around Lothar's head for a moment or two, but then they faded, and he took a slow, firm step forward. Then another one, then a third, and then Lothar charged. However, he was charging at Medivh, not at Khadgar. The mages were surprised, but only for a moment. He quickly dodged out of the way of Lothar's first strike, and then continued to dodge and counter every subsequent slash and cut afterwards. Until finally, Medivh tossed Lothar across the room like a rag doll with a wave of his hand.
So easy.
But, as Medivh once again turned back to where Khadgar had been kneeling, he saw the apprentice wasn't there anymore. And then realised the apprentice was right behind him, pressing the sword that Lothar had provided back at Stormwind right against the magus' left breast.
So, it comes to this. I don't think you have the skill or the will to use that properly, young trust.
Well, I think that the human part of you, Medivh, kept others around despite your plans, as a backup, so we could put you down, so we could break the cycle where you cannot. I never meant to really harm anyone. I only wanted to have my own life. Whether those words were true or not, Medivh's hand raised once more to try and scramble Khadgar's mind, but he never got the chance. Khadgar lunged the sword forward, piercing his mentor's ribs and his heart, and he didn't stop there. He drove the blade straight through the magus, right to its hilt. Thank you. I fought it for as long as I could. Unfortunately, as the life drained from Medivh's eyes, his form then started to change, with horns sprouting from his brow. Sargeras was finally coming to the surface, but Lothar then picked himself up, as well as his rune blade, and then chopped the demon prick's head off. And then it was over. All that remained of Medivh was his skin and his clothes, emptied of all of its content. It was kind of gross.
We should get out of here.
But Khadgar shook his head. I need to stay here. Attend to a few things.
Greatest danger may be past, lad, but the obvious one's still here. We have to drive back the orcs and close the portal.
Khadgar thought back to the last vision, of Stormwind burning and Lane's death, and he thought of his first vision, of his now aged form on that red-skied world taking a final stand. And then he noticed that Garona was no longer present and had buggered off somewhere. I must bury what's left of Medivh, and I should probably find Garona. Lothar grunted, but then shambled towards the exit. However, he did turn to say one final thing.
It couldn't have been helped, you know. We tried, but it was all part of a larger scheme.
I know. A part of a greater cycle. One that now at last may be broken. Lothar then buggered off, and Khadgar gathered up what was left of the magus and returned to the tower above. He found a shovel and a wooden box, and put the bits of Medivh in said box. He also placed the tattered remains of the Song of Aegwynn in there, and then he buried it all, deep in the courtyard. After Medivh was buried, Khadgar dug 2 more graves, one for Morose and one for Cook, and when that was done, he let out a deep sigh and looked up at the tower itself. Karazhan, home of the most mighty mage of Azeroth, the last guardian of the Order of Tirisfal. But then, something caught his eye. A flicker of movement along one of the balconies. A ghostly figure, just sort of hanging about. And Khadgar nodded and smiled to himself. And we're leaving it there! So I hope you enjoyed this particular series. Every series I do, I try and improve on certain things, and I feel like maybe I achieved that a little bit on this one. I don't know. Stepped out of my comfort zone, tried to take the voice acting a little bit more seriously, that sort of thing. As usual, links in the description for the book, my Patreon page, my Discord, all of that stuff. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. And all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!